Stormgate's here with their biggest update yet. I already released a couple of the campaign missions I was able to play early on this YouTube, which you guys can go check out, and that already showed us how much they've improved their game. The campaign's getting improvement, the units are getting changed, all the little extra touches that really make a game feel and look like a thematic piece are being added in, and it just frankly got a lot cooler. I mean, redoing the story was certainly necessary, but also redoing some of the units, as the theme was kind of all over the place for some of these guys, was very much necessary. And now they're also changing how the actual game plays. So this is going to be more for the people who are interested in the multiplayer. We got Stormgate Update 0.4.0 because, yes, they are still in early access, and it's going to include everything that they have changed, including the prices of some of their in-game purchases. The general stuff, I suppose. We got the campaign, which you can see is just all the details about what they did to change it. Like, straight up change it, right? It is completely different. Just go and watch the first mission on my YouTube and you'll see how different it is. It really has been totally redone. But you can get all the details as to what it is and which ones are going to be free and how much they cost. And you can see that it is a lot. They really did a great job improving the campaign. But what we haven't really seen a lot yet, because the patch only just came out today, the 22nd of April, is that multiplayer. We have not seen a lot of the new units we haven't seen in campaign actually be used in a multiplayer game where obviously there's a little more to it than just our commander kind of aim moving and using all of our OP abilities. So we got versus AI updates that I think people are kind of excited about as well, just making sure that the people who don't want to play versus real people actually get their due. Co-op was put on the back burner, which I know people are going to be very interested in. So unfortunately, trying to do all these things has proven a little overwhelming for Stormgate, and they are trying to focus a little bit more on certain things. And, you know, co-op, it does get the least attention, I suppose, for this update. It has to be the way that it is, I suppose. I know that they're very keen on making co-op good, so I believe that another update in the future will have a really big co-op update. If because I'm optimistic about it. I don't know anything, but I'm optimistic about it. And then we have some cosmetics, replays, audio. So unit deaths for Vanguard and Inferno are now more visceral and impactful, which I know a lot of people have been paying attention to, rightfully so. Finding your units to be unresponsive is one thing, but then finding units to be almost mute is another, actually. Both not making the game feel very good. So they are paying attention to that, and they are trying to improve it. And we got some new models, which has been a big point of their advertising recently, showing all the model changes. But here you can see every single model that was changed. One thing that I don't really like, I don't really have a strong opinion on the other things, honestly, but I didn't like that they replaced the bob. I'm not sure what the idea was there for that, because I actually thought the bob was pretty much kind of the perfect, cute, you know, if it was the one-off cute thing, that might be the best, but it was one of the cute things, I guess, that kind of threw back to StarCraft, but was kind of unique and fun, and you kind of cheered for the bobs. And, well, the servo model looks very much not endearing. I mean, it's not appealing. It's not appealing. It's not endearing. But that's the only complaint I'm going to talk about here. Bug fixes, I can let you guys read all of that. I'm trying. This update is so huge. I'm trying to eventually get to the actual balance notes and commentary. Here we go. So they are including commentary, which I always appreciate from any developers, to get an idea as to what they're trying to go for. Of course, that could mean that we disagree with their execution or agree with the theory, or we think both are great or none are great, but at least we have a little more background to why they change the things that they do. So there are some pretty big ones, but let's go ahead and just talk through all of these. Remove the starting units that were causing frustrating interactions. These are their goals. So you can see later down the line, they've removed like the scout, for instance. Increase the movement speed of most units to allow for more action-packed gameplay. I haven't really played Stormgate recently, if I'm being honest, and so I can only go by the Reddit and what people are saying there, but it seems like a lot of people were hoping that this would be a change and that the increased movement speed is a good thing. As far as I can remember from playing a lot of Stormgate last year, that wasn't my main complaint for sure, but I think I would have liked it faster. I am worried also about speed creep, basically. I'm always worried about that, but I think it's okay. I am curious to what it looks like. Anyways, decreasing both the cost and health of tier 1 units, so they are better differentiate tier 1 units versus high tier units. Okay, that makes sense. It was kind of maybe more ambiguous, like tier 1 to tier 2 didn't feel like a big leap, I guess. Revamping various infernal mechanics and systems for more streamlined gameplay. I think that's very much necessary, but I know what they did, changing the entire game, and so I'm in a weird place on that on that goal there, because I do think the infernal mechanic, the I don't know what you would call it, they would over time get like stacks. It's kind of like a warp gate, actually. They would get stacks so that they would eventually, without macroing whatsoever, be able to produce like 5 imps at once, because they have the total number of production. Anyways, we'll get into it more, and I'll probably find better words for it too. But they made everyone have the same macro mechanic, I suppose you would call it, or worker production mechanic. There we go. And I don't know if I like that, but I do think Infernals need to be changed. But I also think Celestials need to be changed, and I don't see that on here, so oh well. Change the construction mechanic of all workers to a charge-based system. There it is, charge-based. That just totally eluded me. To make missing worker production less mechanically punishing and to more easily enable comebacks if there's a significant number of worker deaths. I do want to take a little time for this one. We got a lot of changes, like more specific changes to go through, but I do want to take some time to talk about the theory of this. I guess just the last goal here, reducing the effectiveness of both defensive structures and defensive top bar mechanics. Something like this, they're hoping for less turtling and more action. But this one, changing all the construction mechanics to the Infernals. If you were able to play Stormgate, then you know exactly what that is. But like I was trying to explain, it's kind of like Warp Gate, right? Like if you play StarCraft 2, you get your gateways from into Warp Gates, and then they're on a timer, and then you don't have to do anything to come back and say, oh, the warp gates are off their timer, I can now use them again. So that means you can warp in 10 units at once, whereas the other race mechanics, like a Terran race mechanic, is that if you did skip 1,000 minerals of macro, you didn't have enough production to immediately produce 1,000 minerals of macro, right? You were punished for that. And I'm not getting into balance in StarCraft 2, but this is the asymmetry that they're going for in StarCraft, and what they were going for in Stormgate. But by changing this, all factions to having a charge-based system, they've taken away that asymmetry, and then they've just included a system that I am not a big fan of. Maybe you heard it. The Protoss Warpgate mechanic, I think, has caused a lot of issues in StarCraft design-wise and balance. That if I could do it all over again, I would go to StarCraft. I go to Blizzard in 2006 or whatever it was, and be like, yeah, maybe don't do that. But there's a lot of that in StarCraft, actually, where these macro mechanics, as they call it, were initially for one goal, and then because the game developed and the game got better, it became difficult to balance around the later the game went. So like a larva mechanic is also difficult, or mules instantly replacing all SEVs lost in a later game scenario. It had to be balanced around in a way I don't think was the vision. But pushing away StarCraft for a second, Stormgate is, to me, with this change, reducing too much punishment. I understand, trying to make an easier game or a lower skill floor, as they say, but still keeping the ceiling high is the ultimate goal in all video games, all competitive video games. And so I think this might go along with that, but I really don't like it. Because maybe I am a bit of an elitist. Maybe I do think some brutal mechanics should still exist, even though they're frustrating in 2025. Or maybe I am just thinking of the actual direct impact, which is that if every single race is able to recover almost instantaneously, let's say after minute 8, throwing a number out there, that I feel like that's not really all that fun. There's the strategic decision up to minute, let's say 20, right? Late game, it's not that much of a strategic decision to use all of your charges to produce workers if you need to. But earlier on, obviously there is that money investment. Sure, I get that. There's no downsides to the charge mechanic. But it just doesn't feel good, just initially thinking about it. To be like, oh man, I got that unit in there at minute 6.5, and I killed 3 Bobs or whatever they're called now. and or imps, and now that's going to hurt them for the next 30 seconds the most, right, as they try to slowly replace that. But actually, just kidding, they had those charges, they had already saturated perhaps, and so they had those charges building up, and they just instantly replace it. Yes, it cost them like 150 minerals, but it feels kind of lazy. I guess I'm going to use honest words here. I don't like it. And as I said, maybe I'm too elitist, but it just feels like the idea that it's less mechanically punishing and more easily enable comebacks is true, but is it too true? Are we missing out on a large mechanic that actually is helpful for a lot of the other game dynamics? And are we making a comeback too easy? Are we saying now that worker harassment is very not important, again, past a certain time where these charges are just going to naturally have a lot of them, and they're also going to be cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? Because you're on 3 bases or whatever. I don't know. I know I'm a Terran player and I mule drop, and there's that, but I don't know if I like this being the general production way. So there you have it. My thoughts, not particularly well said, I suppose, but that's just my gut feeling. I don't know if I like it. I'm pretty sure I don't, but you got to play the game. Now that that's over with, let's talk about the general changes. Starting resources are changed. So you get more starting resources, actually, so there's a bit of a faster buildup. You no longer start with Scout, Hex, and a Morph Core. Those are all the units that appeared first in your base alongside your workers and were used for Scouts. They're supposed to be for Scouts. But that didn't really stay that way. And also, I thought this, actually, from the very beginning of Stormgate, having units that can scout and harass, no matter how much you try and make the harass very not impactful, is just bad for the newbie-friendly approach. And I'm just went over how I'm like an elitist, basically, but I do think there is something to having a time period in RTS where players from casual to professional are able to chill a little bit, actually. But especially on the casuals, right? If they are immediately bombarded by a scout, one single scout, who keeps attacking a worker, and the guy who's microing this all to death is banking 5,000 minerals, but still, it is annoying. It's not something people are naturally prepared to deal with if we're talking about the general fan base, I think, of RTS. You're talking about the hardcore sweaty nerds, well then yeah, this very early dynamic and how much they can control the scouts and macro well behind it as well is a beautiful thing. But even then, that can be very frustrating. Just from second 30 or something like that, having to deal with a scout, a Hexen, which had an ability as well, or a Morph Core, which flew. It was very annoying. Very annoying, and I certainly think the counterplay wasn't as fun. So I'm glad they got rid of that. Most units in the game are approximately 10 to 25% faster. I'm not going to go over every single one, but it looks like the unchanged ones are Bob, Imp, Prism, Morph Core, Collection Array, Arc Ship, Arc Station, Arc Fortress. So basically these flying celestial buildings/units didn't need to be any faster. And I agree with that. And then we have the workers as well, not affected by this, because that would change how much they're able to mine as well. But then we have so many units that had their changes, all varying percentage increases. I don't have enough knowledge about Stormgate at this point to say what's broken or not. But like I said earlier, having everything be faster, it will definitely change the game. And that alone might pique people's interests, right? Structures are constructed faster, many of them anyway. Infernal structures increase in build time due to infernal structures gaining a 50% build speed bonus. Oh, on Shroud. So they already have but right, yeah, okay. So these are all the units that are constructed faster. And the Command Post, Sentry Post, Shrine, Shroud Zone, Arcship, Collection Array, Link Node. I mean, I am glad that they are notably not increasing the speed of movement or production for Celestials, because I think that's how you make them even more of a bullshit cheesy race. Whether they're balanced or not is not what I'm talking about. Just it feels unfair to have the flying units all fly faster and build faster. So you can see how many buildings are now. I mean, some of these are halved in time or more. That's insane, actually. Some of them are increased, though, to be fair. These last 4 seem like increases. All right, so the race-specific changes. Vanguard Bobs are replaced with servos. If you haven't seen them, again, you can see them in the missions and any Stormgate play now, I suppose. Bobs were like, humanoid kind of things. They walked kind of funny and they had a funny voice line. Servos are like a floating bulb, like flower bulb, and they float. And I don't know what the change was for. I really don't, but that's what we have now. And now we use charges to build as well. Max 5 charges. So you can't get to a place where you can just, literally produce 20. But I still don't like the system. MedTech. So the medic system shock speed bonus is decreased. So it had an ability that's speed increased, but since you are overall speed increased, you can't have the same 100% total. Yeah. Repair-o-matic, sensor array, flat cannon. These are all the things that the sentry post turns into, depending on what unit you put in it. The health is decreased, so a little less turtle options was one of their goal. And the buzzsaw cannon, an additional one, further decreased in health too. And Infernals, they no longer have white health, which you also could compare to a shield. Different health bar that had to be depleted before you got to their whole health, as I call it. And they called it white health, and it happened when you're on Shroud. So their health has been rebalanced to account for this. Upgrading shrines no longer increases white health generation. Infernal units now regenerate health on Shroud while out of combat. So, I guess not in combat. Almost all of them regenerate 2 health per second, except these guys. Infernal structure now regenerate 1 health per second on Shroud out of combat. I don't know what it was before. Infest has been reframed as Curse. Curse units will now spawn phantoms when they die. Okay, well, brutes will spawn fiends. I don't know. I guess they're kind of going less Zergy with their naming and more devil evil, I guess. Now they spawn phantoms. Okay, all right. Maximum animus, that's the top bar energy. Whoa, decreased from 1,000 to 200. Good lord. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Summon effigy animus. That's the thing that you can plant down and then it spreads your shroud. Cost is increased. Shroud summonization and everything's been... Okay, so the top bar abilities are more difficult to use. All infernal structures now emit shroud. Okay, so shroud might be a little easier to spread. Because they also spread 50% faster on shroud. Oh, no, they build 50% faster on Shroud. Right, we learned that earlier. Imp, health change from 70-20 just to flat 85. Maximum charges on the Shrine increased from 3 to 5, I guess to kind of balance all the races out. Brute got a huge change because it also got one of those big graphic changes, just a total redesign. I do think it looks better and more interesting, and I do think they're following a more hardcore theme for the Infernals, where one of the complaints beforehand was that they were kind of Zergy, they were kind of undeady, they were kind of devilly, Diablo-y, they were kind of whatever, just didn't seem to have a focus, and now it's a little more focused. The Brute was this like kind of chubby, two-headed guy that kind of came out of, I don't know, a tavern in Warcraft or something. Yeah, I like the new design now. It's more like a two-legged dog brute guy. Anyways, the health was changed. Again, they got to make it flatter, but they also increased the health. Cost increased. Size decreased. Weapon period. Jeez, there's so many changes. Sundersoul no longer restores white health because it doesn't exist. Sundersoul movement speed bonus. So when they first break apart to make those fiends, they get a bonus to speed. And now it's even more. New abilities. They have a charge, slamming it and stunning it opponents for 0.5 seconds. I mean, it's going to be stunned this way more than once every 2 seconds, so it can't be just relentless if you have like 20 brutes. And it does require an upgrade. New research, Infernal Fury. Allows brutes to use the Infernal Fury ability and increase their movement speed. Fiend Explosion. Allow brutes to spawn 2 additional fiends. So that's what I was facing in the missions, I guess. Fiend, which is the small things, like broodlings, I suppose. Health change to flat. Now drops 1 corpse, so that can be used for some other ability. No longer immune. New passive, Unholy Ren. Decrease the target's armor by, -2. Wow, that's okay. All right, we'll see how that works out. Phantom, I don't remember what that is. I'm sorry. But that's got changes. Magmadon was one of my favorite units because it's funny. That's had a health decrease, technically. And it no longer consumes white health. Instead, it restores 25% of a unit's max health. So it can consume. Right, I forgot that. Hellborn are the four-legged spider dudes who throw overhead fireballs. Reworked to be a mid-range single-target anti-heavy unit as opposed to a backline AoE unit. So a lot of the changes reflect that. No longer deals splash. And the ability, I suppose, it had on it also was changed. The gaunt, that had a huge change in design. It was a, bipedal, two-legged, I don't know, skinny guy, and now it is a four-legged female centaur kind of looking thing. I'm not actually in love with the design as much as some other people were, but it is what it is. So that had the curse, or it had the infest, I guess, before. Now it has curse, and it doesn't need an upgrade again. Hexen was the starting unit with the ability that just got a health decrease. I think it also got a bit of a change visually from what I could tell in the missions. I'm not sure. Shadow Flyer, like a flyer dude who suicides. Blood Burst range, I don't remember what that is. Spriggan, the other flyer who didn't suicide. Built 2 at a time. So each Spriggan is half as expensive. Supplies very low. Health, whoa, massive decrease. No longer attacks 3 times. Damage increase, range decrease. I don't know what their goal is with the Spriggan, so I don't know what that's about. The Weaver, oh no wait, the Weaver was the Weaver is the guy who throws the ball. Or no, wait, I was right before. Oh, the Weaver's the one who's like on 4, yeah, he's on like his knuckles and he abducts things. Yeah, okay. So he got a bit of a health nerf and again has consume. Harbinger health nerf. Flayed Dragon cost increased, and it no longer costs Animus to summon. That makes sense when they decrease the Animus that much. Health changed a little bit lower. And inhale poison now restores health instead of white health because it doesn't exist. And then a couple of stone health changes. Celestials, which I think should be changed the most, but I think these are just going to be tiny changes, not a total redesign. All top bar ability max charges decrease, so you can't use them as often. Morph Core now uses charges to construct. I can't really wrap my brain around this at this point, and so I haven't played Celestials in 8 months. But okay, now they're charged based somehow. And then some of their units just have health decreases, build time changes, nothing gigantic, I would say, looking at that. So, yeah, I think they are working on Celestials. I believe they said they wanted to redesign them similar, if not more, than the Infernals, which I think they should really, really, really redesign it. But that means that they might not actually be touched all that much until the full package is ready to go, right? They might have some updated models. They might have some significantly different units to introduce, but they're not going to introduce it drip feed. They're going to wait till they have more completion on that. I would assume. I would guess. So yeah, that's all the updates. I highly recommend checking out Stormgate. It is free to play. Yes, there are things you do have to buy for like the later missions, for instance. But if you're someone who was really disappointed with early access and you were hoping that they would show bigger and better improvements, this is certainly one of them. The biggest and best improvement, I would say, so far. If you're someone who, I guess, was disappointed in the campaign specifically, that is much better. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece, but it is much better than what it was. They actually rewrote the story. They rewrote Amara. They hired new voice actors. I mean, it's really quite different. And since you can ladder for free, you can always do that and test out all these new changes as well as see all of the new models. But yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out again because there's really no downside. I mean, you can download it, you can play it, you can say it's still not for me, or I still don't want to play an early access game, which a lot of people have said they just don't want to do that, and that's fair. But I do think this is a big enough and good enough update to warrant a second or third or fourth look, or whatever it is at this point for you. So there you have it. I'll be playing some of the new Stormgate missions, the ones I did not release to YouTube, as well as maybe some multiplayer games on Wednesday, tomorrow from this upload, and perhaps Friday as well if we do not get through the campaign. So check that out, twitch.tv/ZombieGrub. Thanks for watching my YouTube, and I'll have more video game news very soon. Bye-bye.